These two brothers made a purchase they'd never forget. It was a big piece of land just outside of town. They planned to build a house there, but what they didn't expect was an old shed still sitting on the property. When they opened it, they uncovered something surprising, a hidden clue about who used to own the place. Henry and Tom were heading out to check out the land they'd just bought. They were buzzing with excitement, eager to see what they'd actually gotten. The whole thing was a steal from an online auction, so there was a chance it wasn't great. But still, the thrill was real. When they reached the gate and stepped onto their new property, it was clear the land was wild and overgrown. Tom noticed right away that it was going to take a lot of work, but then something caught their eye. Right in the middle stood a building, one that hadn't shown up on the map they got after the sale. It was an old, rusted-out shed, worn down and leaning a little, but definitely still standing. It grabbed their attention right away. Henry started walking around the outside of the shed while Tom gave the big front doors a tug. "Do you see another way in?" "These doors aren't budging," Tom called out. Henry came back around and joined him at the front. The doors were held shut with a thick chain and heavy lock, but Henry already had an idea. He looked down at the rubble nearby and spotted just the thing, a solid steel pipe. He grabbed it, wedged it into the chain, and gave it a few hard twists. After a few solid attempts, the lock gave way with a satisfying snap. The inside of the shed was musty and the light barely reached in. They switched on their flashlights to see better. In the back right corner, they noticed several large boxes, some of them sealed with smaller locks that looked a lot like the one from the front doors. Henry and Tom were instantly intrigued. It felt like they'd just stepped into one of those storage unit treasure shows. The boxes were dusty and old, but something about them felt special. The carvings and little details on the wood were way too fancy to be left forgotten in a place like this. And once they started opening them, it all started to make sense. Inside the boxes were stacks of documents, a complicated blueprint, and old photos of a man with his family. It looked like these folks were the original owners. The blueprint was incredibly detailed, full of sharp lines and carefully drawn shapes that must have taken months to finish. But there was one part that stood out. In the corner, there was a signature, freehand, not technical. The initials read RS, tucked inside an upside-down triangle. Henry stared at it. Something about it felt oddly familiar. Suddenly, the shed and those mysterious plans started to feel more important than the land itself. The brothers jumped back in their car and headed to the first place that came to mind, the local library. It kicked off what would become a long search. They split up and spent hours digging through books and records, but nothing came up. No sign of anyone with the initials RS. They needed a different approach. That's when Tom suggested they reach out to the public. "Maybe someone around here knows something," he told Henry. So they placed an ad in the regional paper asking for help with the name RS and the land they had just bought. Then came the waiting. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into nearly 2 months. Nothing. But then one morning, out of the blue, Tom's phone rang. On the other end was a man who introduced himself as a historian. He'd seen their ad. "I think I can help you," he said. And help he did. The historian not only had a name for them, he had a stack of documents that would open up a whole new story. He told them the man they were looking for was named Robert Stevenson. He was the original owner of the land. "Stevenson, that's our last name too," Henry said, caught off guard. And soon enough, they would learn that wasn't just a coincidence. According to the historian, Robert Stevenson had once been the richest man in the area, maybe even the whole region. He'd lived back in the 1800s, but aside from his wealth and the year he was born, there wasn't much left on record. Then the historian took a look at the materials the brothers had brought. Spotting the blueprint, he said, "Hey, I've got one of these too." He pulled out a large sheet of paper from his own files. Sure enough, it was a map of the same land, showing a house drawn in the center. The same RS initials were marked at the bottom. but something was off. When he held both blueprints up to the light, it became clear. His version was missing a room, the exact spot where the old shed still stood. After Robert Stevenson passed away, it was like his entire life just disappeared. No records, no trace, just gone. The historian guessed that this hidden room, now thought to be right where the shed stood, might hold the answer. The brothers were buzzing with curiosity. That shed, which once seemed like junk, now felt like a door to something big. What had it been hiding all this time? Tom stepped onto the ground near the shed and paused. He'd heard something odd. He shifted about a foot to the side and stomped again. The sound was different, hollow. "Henry, come here." "I think there's something under us," he said. The two of them got to work right away, digging through the packed dirt. It took about 15 minutes of steady clearing before they saw it. A wooden hatch right there in the ground. When they opened it, it revealed a dark hole with an old ladder built into one side. Only the first few steps were visible. Below that, it disappeared into blackness. Beside the hatch, hanging on a hook, they noticed an old oil lamp. They didn't expect it to work after so many years, but figured it was worth a try. Somehow, the oil inside still caught fire, and the lamp lit up the space below. What they saw wasn't a dusty old basement. It was a neatly arranged living room, surprisingly cozy. The furniture was old but carefully placed, like someone had taken real pride in it. And right there on the wall was a big oil painting of Robert Stevenson with his family. The colors were faded, but the image was striking. And in the bottom right corner were those same initials again, R.S. Standing just a few feet from the painting, both brothers stared in quiet awe. It felt like they'd stepped into a moment frozen in time. But there was more. Henry noticed a bit of fabric in the corner of the frame sticking out slightly. Curious, he gently tugged at it and felt something behind the canvas. He slid his fingers into the gap. "Tom, there's something hidden in here," he said, his eyes lighting up. A second later, he pulled out a small, old-fashioned key, but that wasn't all. As he removed the key, a letter slipped out and landed softly on the floor. Henry picked it up and immediately noticed the wax seal. It had the same upside-down triangle symbol. He carefully opened the envelope and began to read. "If you found this room and are reading this letter, you are part of my bloodline. That means everything I owned now belongs to you. This key unlocks the rest of what I've left behind. It's my way of securing a future for my family and everyone who comes after me." Henry and Tom stared at the key, completely amazed. When they tried it in the small lock, it fit like it was made for that exact moment. As the latch clicked open, they lifted the lid, and inside were piles of gold and silver coins. It was unbelievable. Right then, they knew exactly what they wanted to do. Use Robert Stevenson's original blueprints to rebuild the family home, a tribute to his memory and a place they could truly call their own. It took them 2 full years, working through every season to bring it all to life. But in the end, it was everything they'd hoped for. They followed every detail R.S. had drawn, from the materials to the layout, making sure to stay true to his vision. Even the secret room made its way back into the new design, just as it had been all those years ago. Meanwhile, the historian had kept digging and finally uncovered the Stevenson family tree. It confirmed what they already felt in their gut. They really were descendants of Robert Stevenson. It all just clicked into place. What once was a forgotten home in the past was now theirs, rebuilt for the future. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who love a good mystery with a heartwarming twist. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.